Welcome to AQ's Blog and Grill. Today we are really excited to have Larry Kim with us. Now, Larry Kim is the founder of WordStream. He's also a graduate of the University of Waterloo, and he's going to share a little bit of his history about how did he go from a young person from Winnipeg, Manitoba, to the University of Waterloo, and now lives in Boston and is the founder and CTO of WordStream. So it's going to be an interesting chat. Please stick with us and welcome Larry.
Hey, thanks, Alan. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Excellent. Good show. Now, Larry, this whole thing about coming from Winnipeg to the University of Waterloo, how did that happen? How did you get here?
Waterloo has those Canadian math competitions and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like a recruiting magnet for engineering and science. It did okay in those and was able to get in on those through I guess it was those scores, but really everyone else was doing it basically. All the science nerds and math nerds were going there, so it's just like I just went.
Okay, so were you in the co-op program at U of W? I think you were.
Yeah, absolutely. Mostly learned what I wasn't interested in,
Right.
Which is sometimes just as important as figuring out what you're interested in.
Absolutely. What were two of your highlights from the co-op program?
Oh God, like working in California and Silicon Valley during
Nice.
like the .com period was it was pretty infectious and it kind of gets you with the bug to want to start up a startup for your own and actually it actually happened.
There you go. So you started WordStream in 2009?
A bit before, like maybe 2007 or 8, around there.
So how did you go from the successful academic career at U of W, and then you decide you're going to open your own business? How did that transpire? What inspired you?
First of all, if you attend like Larry Smith lectures at UW, you're inspired to create some kind of a business some point in your future. You just don't necessarily know when. So like, to start off, like I'm like always thinking like, how am I going to start something, and then usually the opportunity just like falls into your lap somehow. Like you just stumble across it, and then you decide like, hey, wait a minute, maybe there's something here, or maybe I should quit my job and do this, go all in. And so basically, like a lot of UW students with background in software engineering and all that stuff, I was just doing software at a company, and that company asked me to do some work on their marketing campaigns. So in this case, Google AdWords, and I set up some campaigns for them. And basically, software, it's like there's no incremental cost. Like once you make it, you can just sell lots of them. Right. I set up some campaigns for them, and their business went from like $300,000 a month to $3 million a month. Okay, and I was like, wow, this is really powerful. I should probably maybe specialize in this other thing. I just quit the job and found a bunch of clients and started doing that kind of search marketing consulting work, but even though that has nothing to do with like the engineering background, but what was interesting was that like, because I'm lazy, I wrote software programs to make my own life easier. So that I didn't have to do the same dumb consulting work over and over and over. I just wanted to do like run a program and have that done. And then the aha moment was like, wait a minute, maybe other companies might want to buy this thing. There's this notion of bootstrapping. You kind of need money to make money, kind of thing. And the thing was, I had a dozen clients paying $5,000 to $10,000 a month, so I had revenue coming in, and so at that point it was just like, well, maybe I should just pivot the business from being a services company to being a software company. Right. And so using the money from doing consulting revenue by day, I was writing software by night to kind of build something. And the company now employs hundreds of people. We've got tens of thousands of customers and manage about $500 million of ad revenues in worldwide. It's 1% of every dollar made by Google is actually managed by my company. So that's basically the story there. I mean, it's not a rocket ship straight line. I mean, I'd say most of the growth happened in the last like 3 or so years.
Okay.
I mean, you got to understand, like 6 years ago, it was just myself working out of a Panera Bread. I don't know if you
Right.
have those
Yes, we
in
do. Yes.
Waterloo,
Yeah.
because of the free Wi-Fi and unlimited
Yes.
Diet Coke refills. It's quite an interesting journey. Usually, my understanding is usually it doesn't work, but it's nevertheless, interesting endeavor, especially if you're kind of like the fortunate enough to have made it or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think the story is now, and I tell my students this is, it's not the harder you work, the luckier you get. It's the smarter you work, the luckier you get. And sometimes it just comes down to, guys, I know you're holding all-nighters and things, but activity does not equal achievement. Like, start to get some priorities over what really matters and work on those first.
Yeah, just latching on to what you said there. It's not the number of hours, it's kind of what you do. And I can tell you, like, roughly 3 months of work is responsible for the growth of this company. Just 3 months out of 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
Basically, it was this notion that we would build a tool called the AdWords grader. Okay, it was just like a tool that will analyze your account, your AdWords account, and tell you how you're doing, and like in terms of your click-through rates and your cost per clicks, and then compare you like to your neighbors, to your competitors, basically.
Right.
Just doing that one thing, it just makes people like very competitive. It makes them more urgent. Like, I need to fix my results, and they
Yes.
basically we went from like a 2 or 3 month sales cycle to like a 2 or 3 week, or actually 1 to 2 week sales cycle, and now we're selling hundreds of these things every month. Just like it's so true. It's like 1% of the work made all the difference.
Wow. So what's your relationship now? What's the relationship between WordStream and Google?
Well, we're very close partners. We present at their company events, and like in terms of like their employee meetings and stuff like this.
Right.
They're a really big company, so obviously they like to focus more on like the big spenders, because there's millions and millions of advertisers. It's hard to have direct relationships with every single small business.
Right.
And so what we bring to them is scale. Like, we're able to work with thousands of advertisers using technology that they don't have.
Right. Is it kind of like co-opetition? Are they ever going to turn around and say, well, we could be taking WordStream's business if we wanted to?
I think we're moving in different directions.
Okay.
Let's see if I can give you an analogy. So imagine if you had 3 million, I don't know, 10 million Canadians filing taxes. Okay.
Right.
And what if there was only one way to file the taxes for all 10 million people? And what if they designed it only for like very, very rich people? Okay. Then, that would be a very fantastic, user experience for, the rich people, but it might be potentially a little bit confusing for less sophisticated, smaller returns.
Right.
And so I think the direction that, Google is moving in is towards making, because so much of their revenue comes from their top clients.
Right.
Like they want to move up market and then make it this thing really powerful for enterprises. And we're trying to make something like a TurboTax, like a kind of an idiot-proof way of doing this advertising. It's kind of moving the opposite direction. So I guess the opportunity exists because there's so many million users of this ad platform, and only one way to use it right now. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Excellent. Now, Larry, just recently, as a matter of fact, it might have been, it was recently, you posted a blog about the 5 entrepreneurial myths and busting them. It talked about what you expected and what you didn't get when you thought you were going to become an entrepreneur and thought you were going to get as one, and it didn't come true. I know the first one was, hey, I'm going to be my own boss.
Right. So many people like to turn their hobbies into businesses, but like, even like, I used to love doing search marketing, but now it's just a chore. It's like when it becomes work, it's, I don't know, it loses the fun, and especially when you're doing it on so many thousands of accounts. And of course, you never really are the boss. Your customers are your boss. Your investors are your boss. So like the control and being a boss, I think that's unless it's a lifestyle business, like where you're, but like if you're trying to build something with scale and huge enterprise value, I think that's a myth.
That's an interesting little insight into venture capitalism, which is sometimes referred to as vulture capitalism. And I know in working at the Accelerator Center, which is connected to the University of Waterloo, and then with the entrepreneurial students that I have, you have to kind of explain that Series A money is not, you don't just find it. It isn't laying there waiting for you. The bootstrapping is still one of the prerequisites of getting your business some sales.
Absolutely. Although, so that's the beauty of going from a service, productizing a service. So you have that nice service revenue, then you can divert some of that to building this like escape vehicle that then takes off on its own. You know what I mean? So you'll have to bootstrap and basically get into a position where you don't need the money anymore, and then you'll get your Series A basically.
Right, yes.
But the exception to this is if you've done it before. So having built a company and with huge enterprise valuations, north of whatever 8 figures or whatever. So the point is, if you make a lot of money for your investors, then the second time through, they'll be open to just throwing money at you, even if you haven't bootstrapped anything, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, yep. We see it happen. Larry, maybe you could just give our young entrepreneurs the benefit of your experience. What are the 3 things that you would advise them to be thinking about? What should their frame of reference be as they start their businesses? What would you advise them to be doing and thinking about?
So much is talked about how to build a business, but maybe not enough attention is spent on should or why should I build a business. And so I think you really have to be honest with your expectations, and like, so we're just talking about being your own boss. I'm definitely telling you, like, you're you're deluding yourself. That is not true. You're going to have a board and customers, and they're more demanding than just having a regular job where you can go home. Another reason why a lot of people do this is for the money, of course. Myself, I thought this would be like a get rich quick thing, but I'd encourage your students to think about it as more of a, like, rather than money being the primary objective. Of course, we all hope to make tons of money and everyone would be happy. But I think of like the value as being kind of the journey in terms of like the people you'll meet, the skills you build, and most people don't make it on their first try. So not necessarily looking at that as failure, but as like your MBA or something like that. Right, so another kind of area, this notion of like. Sometimes people will go into entrepreneurship because they feel like they have nothing else to lose. Like I've got nothing else going on or whatever. But it's like, one thing I realize here is, having done this, is that, and especially like the first 3 or 4 years, like we weren't killing it or anything. We were just getting by, if you will. So I just want make sure people know you definitely have something to lose, your pride, because like when you're doing this, people will ask you, how's that startup going, and you'll be like, it's like we're struggling. There's naysayers out there, and then like they even want you to fail. It's kind of sad.
Well, I'm wondering, at 3:30 in the morning, I don't know if you as an entrepreneur have ever experienced, and I'm sure you have, waking up at 3:30 in the morning and saying, I don't know if I can make payroll next Friday.
On 2 occasions, we were near death. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was kind of touch and go early on.
Yeah, and so what got you out of bed in a positive way after that cold sweat that you went through at 3:30? Was it something about what Larry Smith said? Was it something about the work ethic that maybe your family instilled in you, or this need to succeed? What was it?
I think it's just a sense of obligation to your investors. I mean, geez, I've raised tens of millions of dollars here of investor money, and I'm personally promising them like, big returns, like venture size returns, 5, 10x their money, and I'm like trying to make good on those promises. You see what I mean? And you just have the weight of expectations on your shoulders.
Right.
The more you raise, the more you're on the hook for in terms of returns, and that's kind of what motivates you.
Okay. So just as we close up, what were the highlights for you as a student and a resident of the University of Waterloo and Waterloo, Canada?
Yeah, the thing that we used to do was like go to Best Buy. It's like
Best Buy.
Well, believe it or not, there was like a revolution happening in personal computing at the time, and like there would be new printers and new CD burners and all this stuff. It was kind of a big deal, going all the way to
Kitchener Fairway Road.
Kitchener, yes, that was like quite a hike.
Folks at home, we're interviewing a very successful nerdy guy from the University of Waterloo who used to spend his free time at Best Buy checking out the new printers.
And CD burners, it was a big deal. Remember those things?
Oh, yes. Oh, I have one. I still have one. But, well, Larry, thank you very much for spending time with us today. It was very generous of you to allow us into your busy schedule. And I know the entrepreneurs are going to really enjoy this and find some real value. So thanks again, and thanks for being a guest at AQ's Blog and Grill.
Awesome. Thanks, Alan. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Larry.
AQ's Blog and Grill.